The young and the restless spoilers. Audra Charles had always considered herself in control. Calculated, ambitious, and dangerously persuasive, she had maneuvered through Genoa City's treacherous social and corporate circles with the precision of a chess grandmaster. Emotions, to her, were merely tools. If they served her purposes, she embraced them. If not, she buried them. But on this particular morning, as she sat hunched over her bathroom sink, pale and shaking, the world felt like it had tilted off its axis. The metallic taste in her mouth, the waves of nausea, the deep, unnatural exhaustion, these weren't just symptoms of stress. They were signs. And the 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test confirmed what her heart already feared: she was pregnant. Her hands trembled as she held the stick, her breath catching in her throat. Of all the scenarios she had prepared for, corporate takeovers, public humiliation, being outplayed in a game of deceit, this was not one of them. This wasn't a strategy gone wrong. This was life, raw and unstoppable, unfolding inside her body without permission. Her mind raced. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not with Holden. Audra had plans. Ambitions. She had Nate Hastings wrapped around her finger, or so she believed, and with his position, his connections, and his trust, she was on the brink of turning her name into power. A baby didn't fit into that narrative. Especially not Holden's baby. He was supposed to be a fling, a moment of weakness, a spark of something dangerous but fleeting. And yet here she was, staring at a future that might derail everything. The panic quickly turned to fury. Within the hour, she stormed into Holden's apartment, her eyes wild, her movements sharp. He had barely opened the door when she shoved the pregnancy test into his hands. "Look at what you did," she spat, her voice a low growl. Holden, momentarily stunned, stared at the 2 lines, then up at her with wide, astonished eyes. "Is this real?" he whispered. You're pregnant?" She crossed her arms, glaring at him. "Yes, Holden. I'm pregnant. And don't look so damn happy about it." But he was happy. Beneath the shock and confusion, there was something else blooming in Holden's chest, an emotion he hadn't expected: joy. The thought of being a father didn't terrify him like it did Audra. It thrilled him. He reached for her hand. "We can figure this out. We don't have to hide it. We can—" "No," she cut him off, stepping back. "You don't understand. I can't have this baby right now. I still need Nate. I'm not going to throw away everything I've worked for because of one stupid mistake." Holden's expression darkened. "A mistake? That's what this is to you?" She hesitated, then looked away. "I didn't mean it like that. But the damage was done." He clenched his jaw. "So what's your plan, then? Lie to Nate? Tell him it's his? What kind of twisted game are you playing, Audra?" She didn't flinch. "The kind I have to. Nate won't stay by my side if he knows this baby isn't his. And I need him." "You don't understand." "No," Holden snapped. "I understand perfectly. You're using him. You're using me. And now you're going to use this child to keep your place in the game. That's disgusting." The argument exploded from there, voices rising, accusations flying like daggers. Holden demanded to be acknowledged as the father. Audra refused, insisting that keeping this secret was the only way forward. She wasn't ready for her ambitions to be cut short. She had clawed her way to the edge of power, and nothing, not even a child, was going to drag her back. Holden, incensed, begged her to think of the baby, to think of what it meant to deny him his place in its life. But Audra was immovable. The fear in her eyes was too deep, too real. Days passed, but the tension only thickened. Audra avoided Holden's calls, and he, in turn, found himself drowning in frustration and heartbreak. He'd never imagined himself as a father, but now that the possibility had taken root, it was all he could think about. He began reaching out to legal contacts, quietly exploring his rights. If Audra wanted to shut him out, he'd find a way in legally, if necessary. Meanwhile, Audra maintained her cool facade with Nate. She played her role with grace, letting him believe she was simply under the weather, explaining away her mood swings and fatigue with casual mentions of a stomach virus. But the closer she got to him, the more uneasy she became. Nate was a doctor. A smart one. He would notice things. He would ask questions. He would want dates, ultrasounds, blood work. And when that happened, what then? How long could she keep the truth buried? She decided she had to act fast. She orchestrated a dinner with Nate, where she broke the news with practiced tears and trembling lips. "I'm pregnant," she whispered, her voice soft and fragile. Nate was stunned, then cautiously thrilled. "Are you sure?" She nodded, eyes downcast. "I didn't mean for this to happen, but I want to make this work." His embrace was warm, his kiss gentle. But beneath it all, Audra felt like she was drowning. The lie sat heavy on her tongue, and for the first time, she wondered if this game had gone too far. Later that night, as Nate made tea and hummed in the kitchen, Audra sat on the edge of his bed, staring at her reflection. She didn't recognize the woman looking back. There was no trace of the ruthless strategist. Only a girl lost in the consequences of her own manipulation. And somewhere out there, Holden waited. Angry. Heartbroken. Desperate to be part of something he had every right to claim. And Audra had never felt so alone. In the days that followed Audra's announcement, Nate Hastings found himself caught in a curious mix of elation and suspicion. At first, he had embraced the idea of becoming a father with cautious joy. It wasn't something he had expected. Not with Audra, not at this point in his life, but as the initial shock settled, so did a sense of possibility. Yet, as the hours stretched into days, tiny doubts began to gnaw at him like persistent whispers in the back of his mind. The timeline didn't quite add up. He retraced their recent intimacy in his memory, trying to recall the last time they had been together without protection. It had been weeks. Longer than what would be considered plausible for the early symptoms Audra was showing. But he said nothing. Not yet. Instead, he watched her. He noticed how she hesitated whenever he brought up prenatal care. How she changed the subject whenever he mentioned doctor's appointments. How she refused to let him attend her first checkup, citing that she wanted space. It didn't sit right with him. Nate was not only a man with medical training, he was someone who had been lied to before. And if there was one thing he had learned from his past relationships, it was to trust his instincts. He began to dig. Subtly, carefully. He asked his friend Elena, under the guise of medical curiosity, how soon symptoms like Audra's typically manifested. He spoke to his colleague at the hospital about early pregnancy timelines, pretending to be helping a friend. The answers only deepened his suspicion. And then came the final push. He found a discarded receipt in Audra's purse, from a pharmacy across town, dated several days before she told him about the pregnancy. The items listed included prenatal vitamins and a pregnancy test. His heart sank. Why had she waited to tell him? Or had she only decided to tell him once she realized the implications of who the father might really be? Instead of confronting her directly, Nate decided on a different course. He scheduled a surprise appointment with a trusted OB/GYN he knew personally. "I want to make sure everything's okay," he told Audra sweetly. "Let's do this together." She hesitated, visibly uncomfortable, but ultimately agreed. The appointment was quiet, routine, professional, but Nate was watching every micro-reaction. He noticed how Audra seemed tense, how she flinched slightly when the doctor mentioned conception dates, how her responses were short and calculated. Afterward, Nate made a discreet call to the doctor's office. "I'm not asking you to break protocol," he said carefully. "But I'd like you to double-check the gestational estimate and give me the window, unofficially. Please." The doctor, someone who owed him a favor, agreed. When the results came back, they hit Nate like a brick wall. Based on fetal measurements and hormone levels, conception likely occurred during a window when he and Audra hadn't been intimate at all. It didn't just raise a red flag, it screamed betrayal. And yet, Nate didn't confront her immediately. He needed to be sure. He needed her to confess. Over dinner that evening, he was calm, too calm. He poured her wine, which she declined, and asked softly, "Is there anything you want to tell me, Audra? Anything that's been weighing on your mind?" Her eyes flickered for a moment. No, she lied, almost effortlessly. But Nate had already decided. The next morning, he visited Holden. Holden couldn't sleep. Ever since Nate showed up at his door, quiet, grim, but direct, with questions about the pregnancy and suspicions of his own, the fire inside Holden had turned into an inferno. He had spent days pacing the floor, replaying every conversation with Audra, every excuse she'd made, every stolen moment they had shared. He remembered the vulnerability in her voice when she first showed him the test, the way her hands trembled not with joy but with dread. And he remembered how quickly that dread had turned into cold calculation when she chose to lie. Not only to him, but to Nate, the man she still pretended to love. It was one thing to be caught in a mistake. It was another to double down on the lie and try to erase Holden from the equation entirely. He was done playing along. He wanted proof. He wanted justice. He wanted his child. The confrontation happened at her apartment, just after sunset. Holden knocked, not with impatience but with an edge of barely contained rage. Audra opened the door wearing her usual composed expression, but the second she saw the fire in his eyes, her spine straightened defensively. "We need to talk," Holden said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. She closed the door behind him, arms crossed. "What now?" she asked, her tone sharp, already preparing for a battle. "DNA," he said bluntly. "I want a paternity test. And I want it now." Audra blinked, caught off guard by the directness. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. If that child is mine, I have a right to know. I have a right to be a father." She shook her head. "Not now." Nate? Holden interrupted, his voice rising. "You're still pretending this is Nate's? Still clinging to that lie while you keep me in the dark?" "I'm not keeping you in the dark," she argued, but the weakness in her voice betrayed her. "I'm protecting my future. Our future. You just don't see it yet." That sentence made his blood boil. "You don't get to play savior and saboteur at the same time, Audra. You can't tell me you want a future with me and then shove me into the shadows while you cuddle up to another man. It's not like that," she insisted. "Everything I'm doing, it's strategic. I still need Nate's influence. He trusts me. And once I've secured what I need, what?" Holden snapped. "Then you'll dump him? Then you'll come running back to me with a baby in one arm and your ambition in the other?" "Yes," she said, her voice cracking. "Yes, Holden. That's exactly it. Just let me finish what I started. Let me get what we both want. I swear to you, I'll marry you after this. I won't lie to you anymore." "But you are lying," he growled. "Every second you stay by his side, every night you spend pretending it's his child, you're lying. And I don't know if I can watch this much longer." The silence between them was thick with fury, confusion, and hurt. Holden took a step forward, his voice low but dangerous. "I love you, Audra. But if you keep pushing me out, I swear I'll blow this whole thing up. I'll go to Nate. I'll tell him everything. Let's see how long he keeps trusting you after that." Audra's eyes widened with panic. "You wouldn't. Try me." She moved to grab his arm, but he pulled away. "Please, Holden," she said, softer now, almost begging. "Don't ruin this. We're so close. Once I've got what I need from Nate, we'll walk away together. I'll come clean. But if you go to him now, everything falls apart." And then what? Then we're both left with nothing. Her words lingered, but they didn't soothe him. Holden was a man of passion, not patience. And the idea of her sleeping beside another man, whispering lies, carrying his child while calling someone else the father, it twisted his insides with a jealousy so sharp it bordered on madness. He turned back toward the door, his fists clenched. "You have until the end of the week," he said without looking back. "Either you tell Nate the truth, or I will. And after that, whatever future you keep promising me is dead." When the door slammed behind him, Audra stood frozen in place. Her stomach churned, not from morning sickness, but from the sheer weight of what was coming. Her plan, once a delicate web of manipulation and control, was now fraying at every edge. She had underestimated Holden's heart. She had underestimated Nate's intelligence. And worst of all, she had overestimated her ability to hold it all together.